The 2025 NBA Draft is an event that all 30 teams take part in to try to find helpful young talent that can improve their outlook for the future. While that's the goal, not every team actually accomplishes that, and some teams definitely come away better than others. That brings us to today's video, where we'll be going through all 30 NBA teams, and we'll be grading how they performed in the draft this year based on the players that they selected, their needs as a team, and any other decisions that they made with the picks that were under their control. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Starting in the Eastern Conference, going in alphabetical order, we'll begin with the Atlanta Hawks, and their draft grade this year is an A. The Hawks started this week with a pick in the lottery and one more later in the first round, and the team ended up including both of those picks in trades. From my point of view, they won both of those trades by a landslide. A few days ago, they included the 22nd overall pick in a trade that landed them Kristaps Porzingis, and even with Porzingis' current health concerns being a risk, he is worth giving up a few role players and a late first rounder for every single time. Then on draft night, they traded down with the New Orleans Pelicans from pick 13 to pick 23, and by doing so, they added either New Orleans or Milwaukee's first round pick next year, whichever one is better, with both of those teams looking ready to blow things up this summer, so that could end up being a top 10 pick in next year's draft, which is incredible value. They also managed to draft Asa Newell at 23, which is a player that has lottery level talent anyway, as a forward that provides elite defensive potential, so everything they did impressed me to earn that A grade. Next is the Boston Celtics, and their draft grade is a B-. The Celtics had the 28th pick in the first round and came away with Hugo Gonzalez, who's an okay piece for them, but I do question if he was the best option there was there. The Celtics are in big-time sell mode already, getting rid of Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, and while this upcoming season may be a short rebuild year due to Jason Tatum's injury, they by no means intend to rebuild very long, and Hugo Gonzalez comes in pretty inexperienced after struggling to get consistent playing time with Real Madrid, so his development may take a while. Next is the Brooklyn Nets, and their draft grade this year is an F. I went over this in my winners and losers video in more depth that I published a few days ago, so if you want more, go watch that one after you watch this, but basically, I just cannot believe how poorly the Nets did in the draft this year. They entered the night with an NBA record 5 first-round selections to make, and they came away with 3 point guards that all can't shoot, a slow-footed center, and an athletic lockdown defender on the wing in Drake Powell, who also isn't much of a shooter though. 3-point shooting and overall floor spacing is more critical to a successful NBA team than it ever has been now, and the Nets just went 0 for 5 on drafting capable shooters, so even though they all do have talent that could be developed into something solid in their own right, I absolutely hate the combination of all of them together, and believe they could have gone so many different directions with some of these picks. Next is the Charlotte Hornets, and their draft grade this year is a B+. The Hornets had 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks, and with them, they addressed a glaring need on their roster, which is shooting, because they were the 3rd worst 3-point shooting team this year. With the 4th pick, they had a big selection to make, and they ultimately chose to pass on the circus that has become the Ace Bailey experience in favor of Con Knippel, who, on top of being arguably the best shooter in the class, also comes in with elite basketball IQ, impressive secondary playmaking talent, and rock-solid footwork and body control in the paint. Then, with their second first-rounder at number 29, they drafted Liam McNeely, who was seen as lottery-caliber talent for a lot of the college season, and even though he slumped a bit shooting the ball at UConn, I have confidence that he can refine that shooting touch because he's been a knockdown shooter for pretty much his entire life. Next up is the Chicago Bulls, and their draft grade this year is a B. The The Bulls selected Noah Asenge 12th overall in the lottery this year, and it's a selection that may not be the flashiest, but it definitely makes a ton of sense. The Bulls were more than likely always going to be looking for the best front court talent available here, and Noah has a good chance to prove that he was just that. Playing in Germany this season, he had a strong last few months helping his team make it all the way to the Bundesliga finals, and his fluid athleticism, budding jumper, and finishing ability, plus his physical tools, giving reason to believe in his development as a defender, make this a rock-solid selection, even if he may not have true star upside. Next is the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the grade for their draft is a C+. The Cavaliers only had 2 second-round picks to use this year, so no notable splashes on any of the top talent went to Cleveland, but I do like them taking a flyer on Tyrese Proctor in the second round, just in case Ty Jerome leaves in free agency. Next is the Detroit Pistons, and the grade for their draft this year is a C-. The Pistons only had 1 second-round pick to use this year, so again, there wasn't really any room for them to swing big without a trade that never came. Next is the Indiana Pacers, and the grade for their draft this year is a C. The Pacers, like the Cavaliers, didn't have a first-rounder to use, but they had 2 second-round picks to pick with, and made some reasonable but not flashy or notable swings. Next up is the Miami Heat, and the grade for their draft this year is an A-. The Heat held the 20th overall pick in the draft this year, and with it, they landed a player in Kasparas Jakučionis that not only has real lottery-caliber talent, making him a bit of a steal here, but he also fits into arguably the team's biggest need. The Heat are painfully lacking in playmaking at the point guard position, and after a failed Terry Rozier experience, they were once again on the hunt for help in that department. Jakučionis has his own set of flaws for sure, don't get me wrong, hence why he fell out of the lottery to 20th overall, but his strengths stem from the fact that he is a big-bodied point guard who capably runs the offense and sees the floor well, is tactical in the pick and roll, has impressive passing talent, and doesn't need to score the ball to impact a game. He will need to improve as a scorer though, both at the rim and from the perimeter, to reach the upside that he flashed early in the college season, but at his best, he could still be a top point guard in the class, filling a big role for Miami. Next is the Milwaukee Bucks, and the grade for their draft is a C-. The Bucks had 1 single second-round pick to use this year, so they joined the group of teams incapable of taking a meaningful swing, thus affecting the grade. Next is the New York Knicks, and their draft grade this year is a C-. The Knicks joined a pretty big list of teams that didn't have a first-rounder this year, picking with just 1 single second-round selection, and they used it on an overseas swing that may or may not pan out to anything at all. Next is the Orlando Magic, and their draft grade this year is a B+. The Magic had the 25th pick and 2 second-rounders to go along with it, and with that first-round pick, they brought in Jace Richardson, which I view as tremendous value near the end of the first round after being mocked as borderline lottery talent. Richardson may be a bit undersized, standing at just 6 foot flat without shoes on, and he's not a natural point guard, but what he is an outstanding shooter of the ball, a capable slasher, and someone with a strong handle to get to his spots, so for a Magic team in desperate need of more shooting, he fits that bill. Next is the Philadelphia 76ers, and the grade for their draft this year is an A-. The draft really started at pick number 3 after the first 2 picks were pretty locked in well in advance, and the Sixers, I think, made the right call passing on the Ace Bailey circus for the hard-working VJ Edgecombe, who will come in and willingly embrace the role that he's going to be playing from day one. Edgecombe may be the most explosive athlete in the class. He has fantastic measurables for a guard, he's an elite defender, and he works as hard as anybody. His tape playing with the Bahamas national team also shows that he has the potential to be a lethal scorer as a slasher too, and with him willingly doing the little things and making the hustle plays that winning teams need at such a young age, he fits right in with the Sixers' timeline regardless. Next is the Washington Wizards, and the grade for their draft this year is a B-. The Wizards used the 6th pick in the draft to take Trey Johnson, who, as a lethal shot creator and perimeter shooter, can be the go-to scorer that they've been looking for, and I do like that pick quite a bit, but they also had the 21st pick in the first round and used it on Will Riley, which I am much less enthusiastic about. Riley is a 6'8" wing player that doesn't really fit the 3 or the D mold, let alone being able to be a 3 and D guy. He's at his best attacking the basket off the dribble, scoring around the rim, but he was just a 32% shooter from deep at Illinois, and he was pretty poor on the defensive end as well. So in the NBA, where he likely won't be a prominent go-to scorer anymore, I'm worried about his ability to make the transition to this level. Now over to the Western Conference teams. Next up is the Dallas Mavericks, and their draft grade is an A. The Mavericks had one selection this year, and it just so happened to be the selection. They landed the number 1 pick in the draft and made the most obvious pick of all time, bringing in Cooper Flagg, and now they can pair him with Anthony Davis in the front court to get themselves right back into the playoff mix in the West, while also having a pillar to build around long term. Next up is the Denver Nuggets, and the grade for their draft is an F. I don't really know what else to give them here because they didn't make a single selection in the entire draft, so for a team that is lacking in ways to improve the roster due to their salary cap already being maxed out, it's pretty bad that they also failed to find a way to select a single young guy that could potentially develop on a low-cost controlled rookie contract. Next is the Golden State Warriors, and their draft grade this year is a C. The Warriors joined the group of teams whose only picks came in the second round of the draft, so their grade reflects it. Next is the Houston Rockets, and their draft grade is an A. The Rockets may have only made one second-round pick this year, but they originally held ownership of the number 10 pick in the draft, and what they did with it boosted their score big time. They used that number 10 pick as part of the trade package that landed them Kevin Durant, and with their biggest need this offseason having been to find a legit number 1 scoring option, I would say Kevin Durant fits that to a T. Next is the Los Angeles Clippers, and their draft grade is a B+. The Clippers had the last pick of the first round, and they used it to select Yannick Niederhauser, who I actually highlighted in my Hidden Gems video that I published a few days ago. Niederhauser is exactly the kind of big man that pairs well with a player like James Harden, because he primarily operates as a pick-and-roll big with ridiculously impressive athleticism, being a 7-footer with a 37-inch vertical. He's bouncy, he's one of the quickest big men in the draft this year, and on defense, he might be the best shot-blocking talent in the class too, having led the Big Ten in blocks per game this season. You won't see much creation coming from him with the ball in his hands, but the Clippers are a great landing spot for him. Next is the Los Angeles Lakers, and their draft grade is a B-. The Lakers are yet another team that only made one single second-round pick this year, but after a few trades, they used it to move up and land Adu Tiero, who I believe had first-round talent, making it one of the few notable selections in the second round. Next is the Memphis Grizzlies, and their draft grade is a B-. The Grizzlies traded up from number 16 overall to number 11 overall, and at 11, they brought in Cedric Coward, who was easily the biggest riser up draft boards over the last month. I'll be honest, I came away from the draft combine very impressed with Coward as well, based on his size, length, and athletic testing numbers, but this is a player who wasn't even viewed as first-round talent before all of that, and he missed most of this season due to injury, so there isn't much recent tape to justify him this early, so while he fits well with what Memphis were looking for on the wing, it also feels like somewhat of a reach. Next is the Minnesota Timberwolves, and their draft grade this year is a B. The Timberwolves drafted Joan Behringer at 17, and that was their only pick that they made, but they got themselves a highly athletic young center talent that powerfully finishes above the rim, has great shot-blocking instincts, and crashes the glass well for a 7-footer. The team has quite a few big decisions coming up at the center position, with Rudy Gobert potentially finding himself on the trade block, and Naz Reid's free agency looming, so bringing in Behringer as a bit of an insurance is a smart long-term gamble. Next is the New Orleans Pelicans, and their draft grade is a D. The Pelicans' night started well as they used the 7th overall pick in the draft to select Jeremiah Fears, who, while definitely being a player that needs to reel things in and drastically improve his efficiency numbers, is wildly creative on the ball and has a natural feel for making plays. The reason for the poor draft grade here, though, came later on, when they decided to trade up from pick 23 to pick 13 to take Derek Queen, and in the process, they gave up the better of either their own first-rounder next year or the Bucks' first-rounder next year, and quite frankly, either of those picks have a pretty reasonable chance of landing in the top 10 and possibly top 5 next year, so that is pretty insane value to throw away for Derek Queen. Queen is incredibly talented on offense, with the ability to score in so many different ways, but he's one of the least athletic centers ever tested in NBA Combine history, and he's a flat-out liability on defense, so the price far outweighs the benefits. Next is the Oklahoma City Thunder, and their draft grade is a B. The Thunder held the 15th pick in the draft this year and selected Thomas Sorber with it. The NBA champions don't necessarily have much room in their rotation right now, but if there's one area they could use some reinforcements down the line in, it is the center spot, and Sorber is the prototypical Thunder draft target as a guy with a ridiculous 7'6" long wingspan that he uses to cause havoc on defense, blocking 2 shots per game and grabbing 1.5 steals per game. The Thunder also traded away the 24th pick to the Kings for a future protected first rounder, so they continue to stash picks down the line. Next is the Phoenix Suns, and their draft grade is a B+. At first, I was confused about the Suns did on draft night, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense to me. The Suns are still trying to cling to relevancy in the West even after trading away Kevin Durant, which is why they went out and traded for center Mark Williams on draft night to address their massive hole at the center position. So when they also went out and drafted center Kaman Malawach with the 10th overall pick, many scratched their heads at the team adding 2 centers within 15 minutes of each other. It does make sense though, because Mark Williams is the player ready to contribute now as long as he can stay healthy, and Malawach is still very much a raw project, so he's not ready to be the guy right away anyway, and if the Suns do end up blowing things up down the line, his development can then come more of the forefront. Throw in Rasheer Fleming, who the team traded for to grab at pick 31, which is the first pick of the second round, and that's a player that I easily believe should have gone in the first round too, and they had themselves a solid outing. Next is the Portland Trail Blazers, and their draft grade is a C+. I've got to say that I have been a big fan of Jan Hansen throughout the pre-draft process, and even featured him in my Hidden Gems video a few days ago, but when the Blazers selected him 16th overall, that was easily the biggest shock of the entire night. By all accounts, Hansen likely would have been a second-round pick if he didn't get taken there, and is more worthy of that kind of a flyer than a mid-first round capital. He's highly skilled on offense as both a scorer and a passer, but he's also very slow-footed and not ready to anchor an NBA defense by any means right now. The Blazers also still have DeAndre Ayton, and they just drafted Donovan Clingan last year at center, so fit-wise, it becomes even more questionable to reach for a player like him at a position they don't have room for. Next is the Sacramento Kings, and their draft grade is a B-. The Kings had the 24th pick, and with it they selected March Madness star Nick Clifford, who, if I'm being honest, am not in love with as a fit for the Kings. Clifford is a fantastic overall shot creator in the mid-range, and when he gets to the rim, he's got some pop that allows him to convert well, but he's a streaky shooter, and the Kings themselves are way too deep with score-first guards and wings for Clifford to have much of a path to a role right away. Next is the San Antonio Spurs, and their draft grade is an A. The Spurs made 2 picks in the lottery at number 2 and number 14, and with it they came away with Dylan Harper and Carter Bryant, making their haul one of the strongest of the entire night. Harper may seem redundant with both De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle blossoming for them, but Harper has real all-star upside as a point guard that plays in non-stop attack mode with the playmaking instincts to put up some big numbers at the next level. They then addressed their weakness on the wing, By bringing in Bryant, who may be the most prototypical 3-and-D guy in the class, coming in with a high-end motor, competing hard on defense, locking guys down, and offensively posing as a real threat from 3 to space the floor. And finally, the last team up is the Utah Jazz, and their draft grade is a C+. I've given my thoughts on the Ace Bailey circus many times here on this channel already, so I won't harp on it much here, but to summarize, they aren't very positive. He comes to Utah unhappy to have been picked by them, and his selfish playstyle is going to need a lot of fine-tuning for him to reach his potential. I do like that they used their other first-round pick, the 18th overall selection, on Walter Clayton Jr., who may not have the physical profile of a high-end guard, but after leading Florida to the title this year, he proved he's got game and the drive to produce as a high-end shot maker and lead ball handler. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you thought about how each of these teams performed in the draft this year. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.